Welcome back. We decided on the trips that we would also include a couple of questions, some questions that we get asked across our different social media platforms, of which I'm only aware of one. I don't manage the Instagram.
It's usually me. So any
TikTok.
of you that message on Instagram, it's usually me. But some of the questions I will go to Anne for his input. So he does get to read or hear me read the posts that we get.
But on these trips, we've decided to answer the questions in video style, and hopefully that will help more people than answering directly back to people on Instagram, where we might get asked the same question over and over. We definitely do get asked the same question over
Yeah,
and
a lot
over.
of the same topics come up.
We're currently heading back from Palm Springs. We actually recorded the answers to these questions on the way to Palm Springs. So when you see this cut, it will look slightly different because we'll be in different clothes, we hope. Otherwise, we haven't washed. So enjoy the answers to these questions. And please, any other questions you have, either ask them on YouTube in the comments and Selena will read those, or on Instagram. And then on our next trip, we can answer those.
Somebody on Instagram messaged me a couple of questions. They've just moved to the US. I think they've hired a car, and they were asking for the rationale as to why we bought our car cash as opposed to getting a loan and using that to build up credit in the USA. I have to admit, when we got here, those first few days were a complete blur, and I remember we were looking at houses and had found the car within a day of us getting here. So it was a bit of a blur, and for us, we didn't consider getting the loan at all, and that wasn't something we looked into. There were factors as well, because we literally had just landed, and within 2 or 3 days we picked up the car?
Yeah, probably around 2 days. Go back and watch all the videos, you'll find out. It was documented.
Yeah,
Might
that's
have been
true.
one day.
It might have been a day. I really do think it was that early. We'd kind of, the way that it worked out with my relocation package, the cash that we had, it worked for us that we were going to buy the car, but it was also not, in terms of timing with Social Security and all of that, we didn't have any of that yet. We hadn't even been to the Social Security office yet, because our appointment was for a week after we had arrived, because I also had issues trying to get an appointment there. So for us, it wasn't even a consideration. It's not that we wouldn't have considered a loan had the timing have been right to build up credit, but for us the price was a really good price for what we was getting, and little did we know the timing, because the prices of cars shot up considerably, I think within weeks after that, I feel. So we got very lucky on timing with buying that. But yeah, any other reason that you would add?
I don't really like financing cars. I don't think it's a good use of financing the rates. So you build up your credit, sure, but at what expense? So I've made the mistake once of financing a car, which was really recent before leaving the UK, and hated it. Before then we would just buy cash. I don't think it's a good use of finance credit and a good way to build up your credit score, so I probably wouldn't have done it anyway. There are 2, I think, companies that provide credit to non-US citizens that often, if you're moving over a corporation, they'll put you in touch with them, and they did with us. But the rates weren't good, and you had to go through their systems, and it was just hassle for nothing. We had the cash. The car was, in the end, probably about 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 less than it was a couple of weeks later. So the timing was right. It was the right car. We bought it, and that was it. Our main focus, though, was to not impact our lending ability for a house, and that was where we made the huge mistake. We should have bought the house then and not the car, and suffered a $7,000 loss on the car, because I can assure you it cost us over $100,000 extra to buy the house 1 year later.
The other question that she had was around, was there any difficulty with using our UK driver's license to get car insurance? I actually remember, because we were doing it, we were there at the car dealership calling, who's our car insurance with? I'm trying to remember. Progressive. The reception wasn't very good. You'll find that in Vegas as well. The reception, trying to make calls sometimes, is not great. But no, we did not have any issues me to my colleagues here with a Nevada state driving license, it doesn't seem like it makes any difference to how much you pay your car insurance, from what I can tell anyway. The shocker was the price of car insurance coming from the UK, where I remember years ago paying £400 for the year for my car insurance, and yes, it did start to creep up in more recent years, but then it was a bit of a shock to get the premium here and know that it's in 6 months we're paying at the moment.
Yeah, there is bi-yearly or whatever the term is. So you biannual, so you pay it twice a year, and the reason for that is so that if you have a crash, they can sting you much quicker. And it's about 4 times the price of the UK. You might want to clarify, years ago paying 400. That's not how I remember UK prices.
Oh yeah, so I'm talking about when I was 17 years old, which is...
Wow, you had a different experience. So
yeah,
car insurance has got considerably cheaper for me in the UK. So this again is where mileage varies. My first car insurance was over 1,500, and it didn't drop down until the last 5 years or so, where it became closer to the 400-500s. And when we left, so not years ago, the most recent car insurance that we paid was 400 and 500 on relatively expensive, relatively premium cars, and then to come here and have a less expensive car and pay 4 times as much. But yeah, I'm not, I don't really remember the cheap prices years ago. That wasn't...
I got really cheap car insurance. I remember I did my driving, I passed my driver's test, and then I did the Pass Plus, and then my insurance was pretty cheap. And then I remember those around me weren't getting as cheap insurance a couple of years later. So I passed my test before many people, and I started building up no claims discount and everything, and that would work.
You were saying many years ago.
Oh yeah, I'm talking many when I passed. Originally, that was...
So it was cheaper for you then?
Yeah.
Wow, you got really lucky.
But I remember, because when everyone else started saying what they were paying, and then my insurance started to creep up, and then there was the years where it didn't seem that being with one insurance meant your insurance would stay cheaper. It was cheaper to then switch insurance providers and get the deals.
See, I'm learning as well. I don't
that
remember this at least. Yeah. For me, it's way cheaper the last 5 or 6 years in the UK, and then now we're back to paying. It works out to, I think, about $2,200 a year for what is a family SUV, which to me is absolutely ridiculous for people that have been driving with lots of experience and no crashes.
I am actually curious for the people that watch the channel to know how much you guys pay for your car insurance as well, in comparison, because it was a surprise to us. I've learned it's normal. Every time I say to people, like, no, that's fairly normal, but it'll be interesting across the states how it varies as well. It wasn't really a question, but the person did mention about they're not looking forward to sitting their driver's test. I would say, in comparison to the UK, especially here in Vegas, there is nothing to be concerned with doing the driving test.
If you've passed in the UK, if they're coming from the UK, because I don't know who this is, you'll have no problems here. It is scary, the people they let on the roads. If you can get in a car, start it, and hit less than 7 vehicles, you are good to go.
But I don't know if that's everywhere. So my assessment of the US overall, it's far easier to drive in the US than it is in the UK or Europe. It's far more complex how the roads, and also the driving ability just seems a lot better to me.
Driving standards are horrendous here.
So, but here in Vegas in particular, it's a different thing. So I just want to be clear, when we're saying about that, it's another level. These people should not be allowed on the road ever.
They wouldn't be in the UK. There's no way you'd pass your test.
And in the new year, we got a really nice message from somebody from Ghana. His name is Obed. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly. And number one, we just both want to say thank you so much for the message. It was really, really nice. We love getting messages where we see how much people are enjoying the videos and how helpful they are. So firstly, thank you. In your question or your message, we were trying to decipher what is it that you're really asking us, because we understand about your situation in Ghana, and that you're thinking about the possibility of moving to the UK or the USA if live, so there is a possibility that it could happen for you. But what we've understood from your question is that you want to understand from our perspective the reality of living in the UK and now in the USA, given our experience. And hopefully that's the right way that we've interpreted the question.
Remember, so we get this a lot, we're only ever giving our experience, our interpretation of our experiences, and nothing further. And a lot of people are like, that isn't true because my situation is different. We understand that. So this is only coming from our lived experience. I think that if you're starting out in life, whether that's financially, looking for your first home, looking for relatively cheap education, so anywhere where you're starting out in life, the UK is a much safer place to start out. It provides a lot to people that are trying to get ahead in life, and then it will stop you once you do. So once you achieve anything, they want everything back from you, which is somewhat understandable.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Kind of, it
Yeah.
does. It's a relatively safe place to be if you fall into hard times as well. But for us, the reality of living there is the taxes are too high, the healthcare is poor, the access to healthcare, I would say, is poor. So if you need to be seen within a reasonable amount of time, it's just not going to happen in the UK. There's not really many ways around it unless you're willing to pay both taxes and for private healthcare on top, which when I went to use it only works Monday through Friday. So we cancelled that. So I would say for us, we got to the point really in life where the US begun to make a lot more sense. And this is aside of the fact that we wanted to come and live in the US and find out what it's like here. Just it made more financial and life sense for us. In reality, it's not a bad place to live. There's no real negatives. I know everybody in the world's going through a lot of pain right now in terms of gas and electricity prices, but that's everywhere. It hurts people in the UK more, and as you mentioned in your question, the salaries are a lot lower, and that's why it hurts people a lot more. Whereas in the US, they have more disposable income if you're in a reasonable job. On the flip side, the US is the exact opposite. Our experience and our understanding from people that have lived here most, if not all of their lives, it can be really punishing if you start off poor or you need some help. Now, we've not lived that, but this is what we understand from people and what we've gained from what they've understood from living here. For us, however, it's amazing. We have half the tax, we have a much nicer home, our gas and electricity prices are less than they are in the UK. We have a much better quality of living, but that's because we'd already kind of established ourselves financially before coming here.
Yeah.
So I think the takeaway for me is if you're financially stable or you're about to walk into a job that's going to make you financially stable, do it in the US. If you're not, do it in the UK.
Yeah, I don't think I could add anything to that. I think both places are good. They have positives and they both have negatives, and I totally agree with that. If your finances are there is no reason why the US won't work for you, and that can't be a great place. But the UK is far more forgiving, and it's a great place to start. And funny enough, your message to us was very similar to somebody else that had reached out to us last year asking for a very similar thing, and we do have some videos that compare the two, but a full breakdown: healthcare, income, quality of life. If Anne remembers, he can put a link to those in this video, but we've got lots of videos on that too.
So we've kind of touched on this, but the next part of your question was around healthcare and salaries. Salaries like for like, without a doubt, Selena employs people considerably higher. The first time I met people here who are managers within a company, they commented on when they're employing people in the UK, it's shocking how low the salaries are, and they employ people worldwide. And they've been through the process of trying to argue the point, and it just is not accepted. You don't get paid in the UK. It can literally be double or more in lots of cases. The comment on healthcare, I think Selena mentioned that you thought healthcare wasn't as good here. that really depends on what you're talking about. And again, we'll only talk from our perspective,
Our
because it's
perspective, yeah.
very, 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 very complex, the US system. If you live in the right area, and that doesn't just mean if you're wealthy, because you might be wealthy in an area that doesn't have good health services, as we're finding out. But if you live in the right area and you have enough money or a great insurance program, so if you work for a healthcare provider, a technology provider, they will give you access to really good healthcare insurances, which tend to cost on high salaries far less than it would cost you in the UK. But there's a thing, you need to be in a good area with lots of money. When you have lots of money and you live in a good area, everything is cheaper to you, proportionate to your income, than it would be in the UK. In the UK, the more you earn, the more you pay for your healthcare via taxes, national
But the
insurance.
service and the quality that you're getting
Remains
is
the
the
same,
same. So it's not
precisely.
going up.
In the US, the more you earn, the cheaper it is, because it's a fixed rate. For example, I think for the pair of us, we pay $250 a month,
Yeah.
give or take, for our healthcare. If you go to the hospital or you need a prescription or you need to visit somebody, it's anywhere from $15 to $30 as a copay. Now, there are other charges that you need to go and watch Selena's other videos on this that gives a breakdown of some of the charges and some of the out-of-pocket fees. But in general, if you just need a doctor's office visit or an online consultation, it's going to cost you $30. So if you're in good health with good income, the US. If you're in poor health with no or poor income, the UK.
Yeah. It's perspective, and my job is working in healthcare. I do not believe that you get better healthcare in the NHS versus here. You can do, and you can do here. You can get worse care in the NHS, and you can get worse care in the USA. It really depends on your
What's the term?
circumstance.
Postcode lottery.
Yeah, that's what we call it in the
Yeah.
UK, and it's true.
Or zip
Because,
code
and I
lottery.
saw it personally in the UK, where the quality of treatment that was being given to
Varied.
patients really did vary. Whether they had access to the latest technology, the services, the staff, everything. It's not unified across the NHS. But it's the same here. It's not the same here either. So I would say...
That was a tricky sentence.
I know,
It's
it
the,
just
it's
came
the
out
same
about
here, it's not the same here. But I know what you meant.
No, but I didn't...
It's the same here in that it differs depending on where you live and how much you earn.
Exactly. Therefore, I wouldn't use that. But in terms of the expense of healthcare, the UK makes more sense overall if you're on a lower salary.
So hopefully that covers off our interpretation of your question. If it doesn't, let us know, and we'll try and cover it off in another video. We do plan on answering lots of these questions on our road trip. Hopefully whatever we said in the clip that we can't remember because it was 2 days ago made some sense. Let us know what you think in the comments. Make sure you like, subscribe. Thanks for watching.